few moments to go over some of the important security information pertaining to our sanctuary. For safety and courtesy, please silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already. I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency exits and the other safety features in our sanctuary. Please look around for the red or green exit lights over the doors. There are exits on both sides of the bima behind me. There are exits in the back of the social hall behind you. And there are additional exits both to the east side of the sanctuary and also to the west from which you enter. There is a fire extinguisher and an AED device near the water fountain outside in the hall, and another fire extinguisher inside the sanctuary where you entered. Please take a moment to look around to locate the exits nearest to you. In the front of your seat, there it is. In the front of your seat, there is a placard, which also contains some of this same safety information. In the unlikely event that we must evacuate the building, we will meet outside in the parking lot in the southwest corner away from the building. Thank you very much for your attention, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So on this Shabbat, we are blessed to have with us Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin, and he's going to be our teacher this evening. But some might know this, only a few people. But there was a time in my childhood when he was one of my rabbis as well, and in one of my post B'nai Mitzvah classes, his wife Didi, who's also here with us, and they're going to do some music together in a minute, was one of my teachers for a part of a class, so have fond memories of both of them from those days, as well as encountering Rabbi Rubin through the years as a rabbinic colleague in various settings as well. We're going to begin actually with one of their melodies, one of their songs. They've written a number of liturgical pieces and other Jewish music, and asked if there was something that Steve would like to share, and Didi today. And this is a version of Elohai Neshama, which talks about the purity of the soul that God implants within us.
Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So this is, as Rabbi Kupitz mentioned, this is a song of ours that is based on a traditional morning prayer. When you wake up, you give thanks for many things, and one of them is the miracle of life itself. And Elohai Neshama means that you thank God for the soul that got put back into your body when you wake up. So that every time, according to the rabbis, when you go to sleep, it's like you get reborn every morning. What's more miraculous than that? So this is our version of that.
I'm just his background singer.
If you believe that, I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. Elohai Neshama Shenatata Bi Elohai Neshama Tehorahi Tabarata Atayatzarta Atanafachta Bi Elohai Neshama Elohai Neshama Elohai Neshama Bakirbi Holy One with a soul you gave to me. Holy One, I am whole and gratefully. Every morning, every evening, everyone can see every miracle,
Every miracle,
every miracle,
every miracle,
every miracle given me. Spirit breathing in me lightens up my soul.
lightens up my soul.
Holy light within me makes me whole. Elohai Nishama
Neshama,
Shinatatabi.
Shenatatabi,
Elohai Nishama Tahorahi. Every morning, every evening, everyone can see every miracle,
every miracle,
every miracle,
every miracle,
every miracle given me. Shabbat Shalom.
We're going to turn now to page 2 and 3 in our Siddur. As we bless our Shabbat lights and bring in this Shabbat, we've had that beautiful Elohai Neshama offering that began to already fill my soul with the spirit of this evening. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light. If you're able to comfortably do so, I invite you to rise as we join in the blessing over our Shabbat lights. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. You may be seated. We turn to pages 20 and 21. We'll continue with Lecha Dodi in a moment, but as is our custom, we pause before Lecha Dodi to reflect on our week, to take a breath, to stop on each day and think about its challenges and its blessings. And then together with Lecha Dodi, we'll bring in Shabbat with one another. Hazarat HaShavua, review of the week. We'll sing together verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. For those of you in the sanctuary, when we get to verse 9, I'll invite you to rise if you're able to do so and face the doors from which we entered to welcome the Shabbat presence and the Nishama Yetera, the extra soulfulness that travels with us during Shabbat into the congregation and into our hearts. If you're joining us online, I'll invite you to turn towards the door of your home to welcome Shabbat. Lecha Dodi, pages 20 and 21. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. La 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Yishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ultiferet v'litchila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Hit oreri, kiva orech, kumi uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha uv'sola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, la 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. La 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 lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nikabela. What I didn't mention at the beginning of the service is, as we have done when we have special guests at our services, our liturgy tonight is going to be compressed a little bit so that we have more time to hear from Rabbi Rubin and to engage with Rabbi Rubin if we have questions and things like that. So if that's what you'd like, well, we will continue with Baruch Hu, our call to prayer on page 28. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, le'olam va'ed. Page 30, last 3 lines in the Hebrew. El chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai, Hamariv Aravi. Page 34 and 35, Shema Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam va'ed. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. You may be seated. Continue on page 36. Ve'ahavta. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'otecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha ve'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtaftam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet. We turn to Micha Mocha, our Song of Freedom, page 40. Yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 yada die 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 Mi chamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha netar bakodesh norat hilot, osefele, osefele, malchutcha ra'u vanecha, bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, malchutcha ra'u vanecha, Bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, olam. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yai die 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 die. Zezeli anu ve'ameru Adonai imloch leolam leolam vaed. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yai die 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 die. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Yada die 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 yada die die die. Gal Yisrael. Amen. 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 We're going to skip ahead to Vishamru on page 44 as we give thanks for this opportunity to pause, to breathe, to connect with ourselves, with our community, with God, to be just for a little while, to stop with the oppressive need to do and to respond and just be in a place of just being. So as we join in singing Vishamru, we also try to take the time that we have this evening in our Shabbat service and maybe the time over all of Shabbat and see if we can expand that bubble of a place for us to just be, for a place for us to be connected to what's most important. Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael Oti leolam, oti leolam, oti leolam. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai, et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Ve'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash, Shavat vayinafash. Veshamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam. So I didn't mention at the beginning of the service, so I'll just pause here to do that. Some people know and some people don't. Cantor Paul's been struggling with vertigo this week. since last Shabbat. He's doing better. Doctors have decided he had a viral infection and that it made a nerve in his ear swell, but he's getting better. But he's still a little wobbly, so I told him to stay home this evening. So we wish him continued healing, and he sends greetings for Shabbat Shalom. He was the one who was going to be, it's okay, I'll be wobbly, but I'll come. I said, no, stay home. So I know you join me in wishing him prayers for healing, but I just wanted to explain why he wasn't here this evening. And we're going to continue on page 46 as we move into our Amidah. I'm going to invite everybody who's comfortably able to do so to please rise. Adonai sifatai tivtach ufi agit tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Page 50. Ata gibor leolam Adonai Mechaye hakol ata Rav lehoshia Mashiv haruach Umorid hagashem Mechalkel chayim bechesed Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim Somech noflim verofech olim Umatir asurim Umekayem emunato Lishenei afar Micha mocha ba'al gevurot Umido melach Melech memit umechayeh Umatzmiach Yeshua B'ne'eman atal hachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayeh hakol. Page 52. You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please continue silently with the text of your own heart or the words of the Siddur through page 62, 63. When you're through, you may be seated. would like to invite Joan Gerard to come up and share a little bit about our Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series. And then she'll introduce the introducer, who will introduce Rabbi Rubin.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm pleased to introduce the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series, which falls under the umbrella of the Adult Jewish Learning Committee. And I would like you to please check the weekly e-blasts for all of our classes or offerings. I do want to mention quickly that the trip to the Japanese American National Museum, which was scheduled for next Wednesday, had to be postponed, but will be rescheduled. So please watch for updates for the new date and time. The Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series, which began in 2014, brings highly regarded speakers to Temple Beth Israel. Brenda, a Temple member for over 40 years, was a founding member of the Temple's Social Action Committee, chaired numerous Temple adult education events, and served on Claremont's Human Relations Council. The Rosenfeld Scholar Series continues to affirm Brenda's values and to memorialize her tireless commitment to Jewish life, learning, and healing the world. I would now like to introduce Karen Salter-Moss from the Brenda Rosenfeld Scholar Series Committee.
Thank you, Joan. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I'd like to introduce Rabbi Stephen Carr Rubin. He served as a senior rabbi of TBI Israel Reconstructionist Congregation in the Pacific Palisades for 28 years and is currently Rabbi Emeritus. He is the author of 7 books, including Raising Jewish Children in a Contemporary World, Making Interfaith Marriage Work, Children of Character, Leading Your Children to Ethical Choices in Everyday Life, Becoming Jewish, A Year with Mordecai Kaplan, Wisdom on the Weekly Torah Portions, and with his wife Dee Dee, How to Marry Your Second Husband First. Rabbi Rubin is the recipient of numerous community awards, including the Micah Award for founding the largest full-service homeless shelter in Los Angeles, and the Unsung Heroes Award from the Youth Law Center of San Francisco. He is the founder of Home Shalom, a project for every synagogue to be a safe sanctuary from domestic violence, is past president of the Board of Rabbis of Southern California, and his musical compositions are performed in synagogues throughout the world. He is married to Dee Dee Carr Rubin, is stepfather to Gable, and I'm proud to say is also my cousin. So.
That was the most important part. We live in the Wild West out here. Thank you, Karen, my cousin. How do you get invited to synagogues? You have a cousin who invites you. It's good. Maybe I'll do it this way. I always think it's funny when, actually I thought it was funny when I received this award called the Unsung Hero Award. It's like, how can you give someone an award that says Unsung Hero? The minute you give it, they're sung. Anyway, I want to thank Rabbi Kupitz, who, those of you who were here early on, heard that I was his rabbi 40 years ago. So if you like him as a rabbi, I'll take responsibility for it. If you don't, he was a bad student, obviously. Okay, so every time I lead services, which I've now been doing for 46 years, I remember something one of our third grade students said when asked, what's the definition of a rabbi? And he said, a rabbi is someone who talks to God through a microphone. And when I'm invited places to speak like this, which I'm very grateful for because it's always really fun to inflict myself on new people who haven't heard me before, I can't help but think of an invitation I had in my own community. I live in Pacific Palisades. It's a very ecumenical community, and one week the Methodist minister asked me if I would cover for him on Sunday and preach at his services because he had someplace to go, and we're all very friendly. And I said, sure, that'd be fun. So I'm sitting on, they don't call it a bima, but I'm sitting on their bima, waiting to get up, and the woman who's in charge, just before I'm about to speak, turns to me and says, "Oh, Rabbi, I'm really sorry, but when you get up, you're going to have to speak loudly. The microphones don't work really well, and the agnostics in this room are terrible." True story. So I don't know about the agnostics in this room, but I can only imagine. Okay, so why do I have a talk entitled 5 Jewish Ideas That Changed the World? Because I thought it was a cool title mostly, but really because I often think about the miracle of Jewish survival. For thousands of years, particularly these days as it's getting more and more challenging to think about Jewish survival everywhere in the world. It's a story I never get tired of talking about, who we are, where we came from, the difference we've made in the world as a people. And, there are 7 billion plus people in the world. I'm terrible at math, but I know there are 7+ billion people in the world, and we have, 14, 15, I don't know, 16 million maybe Jews in the whole world, 0.2% at the most of all the people in the world. 1.5 billion Muslims, there's over 2 billion Christians, there's over 1 billion Hindus, there's 500 million Buddhists, and then there's us. This little tiny, infinitesimally tiny number of Jews, and yet we have this extraordinary impact on the world. People seem to be talking about us all the time, and we always have. I mean, how many of us pat ourselves on the back saying, well, we have at least 20% of all Nobel Prize winners who are Jewish, and we think that's pretty cool. I do. And after all, where did Christianity come from? Judaism. And actually, where does Islam trace its roots from? Judaism. We are small, but very loud. We make a big impact. So this is really about Jewish pride and Jewish self-worth, because I'm very much into pride and self-worth when I work with teens and kids, but having a sense of themselves in the world and their place. It's what I want to teach them always, which is that what they say matters, and what they do matters, and who they are matters. And in this case, it's that Judaism itself matters. Obviously, there are more than 5 Jewish ideas that matter. But as I said, I love the title, so what can I say? And I know that probably most of you, and while I'm doing this, I'm going to encourage you to come up with your own list of the Jewish ideas that might inspire you or might have inspired you. But I get the mic, so here are my top 5. By the way, have you ever heard the Jewish definition of an optimist? It's the woman who puts her shoes on when the rabbi says, "and in conclusion." Okay, back to my, sorry, back to my top 5. Okay, Jewish idea number 1. This is what a hyperactive kid looks like when he grows up, by the way. Jewish idea number 1. The very first thing, this is going to be so obvious, the very first thing said in the Torah about human beings is, for me, the single most important idea in the entire Torah. I absolutely believe if we only had this one sentence from the Torah and nothing else and all the rest was gone, if, like, God forbid, the whole Torah disappeared, but this one sentence, and everybody read this sentence, and everybody lived this one sentence, it would transform the world. And of course, the sentence is, in Hebrew, Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tselmo, b'tselem Elohim bara oto, zachar u'nekeva bara otam. God created humankind in the divine image, creating them male and female. Tselem Elohim, in the image of the divine. What's that even mean, to be created in the image of the divine? I noticed as we were praying from your prayer book, our prayer book tonight, that after the Ve'ahavta, there's all these, throughout the prayer book, below the line, wonderful quotes from wonderful people. And one of them was from Martin Buber on page 37, where Buber says, if someone comes up to you and asks for help, your job is to pretend there's no God. Otherwise, you'd say, oh, this poor person, he's homeless. God, please provide him a house. And then you pretend it's the Wizard of Oz and a house drops down. Or there's someone who's hungry and you go, dear God, please feed this hungry person. And what, you expect manna to drop from heaven? Hungry people get fed because we think, oh, these are God's hands. This is God's mouth. These are God's eyes. This is how God works in the world. This is what it means to say human beings are created b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image. It means we are supposed to be God's partners and representatives on earth, regardless of what your theology is about God. This is how God works, by what we do in the world, by the holiness, the divinity that we bring into every relationship, every connection, every challenge. That's clearly what this lecture series is about. Someone who cared about the world and wanted to bring holiness through what she did into the world. That's our job. It's not always an easy job, but it's our commitment, what it means to be a part of the Jewish people. To act as if you don't do it, no one does it. That's the challenge of being made in b'tselem Elohim. That's my most important idea that changed the world, number one, because every time we do that, we affect and transform the world. My Jewish idea, number two, is one of the few sentences in the entire Torah that almost everybody has heard of. My late wonderful colleague, Rabbi Cheryl Lewert, had a license plate on her car. It said LEV 1918. That's my second idea, number two. Leviticus 19:18, ve'ahavta l'oreacha kamocha, you should love your neighbor as yourself. Almost everybody's heard that. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is not so easy to do, depending upon who's your neighbor. Love your neighbor as yourself. Not only that, I have always loved this phrase, love your neighbor as yourself, because what it demands is you love yourself first. If you don't like yourself, I don't want you to love me the way you like you. Love your neighbor as you love yourself demands a sense of your own place in the world and that you matter and that you have value. To cherish who you are, number one, first. It's like my wife always teaches when she teaches the confirmation class that your rabbi was in, saying, you know, you get on the airplane and what do they say? Put the mask on yourself first. If you don't take care of yourself, you're no good to anybody else. That's ve'ahavta l'oreacha kamocha. It's both ends of the spectrum. Take care of yourself, cherish yourself, and then see yourself reflected in the eyes of your neighbor. When I said my Jewish idea number one is about the divine image, imagine if every time you looked at every other human being, you saw God looking back at you. Whatever you believe, you saw a sense of holiness, of divinity. You wouldn't punch them out. You wouldn't put them down. You wouldn't disparage them. You would have a sense of reverence and awe with every single human being on the planet. That's what the Torah, I believe, is all about. That's what thousands of years, I mean, you have to think about, I do, I'm a rabbi, but I think about all the time, how amazing is it that more than 3,000 years ago, our ancestors had this kind of wisdom in a world that was so radically different from ours. So radically different. First of all, love your neighbor as yourself. How can you be commanded to love someone anyway? Loving is not what you feel in your heart, say the rabbis. It's what you do with your feet and your hands and your mouth. That's how you show someone you love them. How you show your neighbor you love your neighbor is by taking care of the things that your neighbor needs. And then to say to yourself, what do we mean by neighbor? Another big challenge. Ve'ahavta l'oreacha. Love your neighbor. Well, what do we mean by neighbor? Is that person next to me? Is it only someone else who is Jewish? Is it only someone else who looks like me? Is the same race? Is the same religion? Speaks the same language? The more we expand our sense of what we mean by neighbor, the more greater an impact we have on the world. You know, there's a famous story, one of my favorite stories in the Talmud, I'm pointing to the Torah, but the Talmud, is about the two men in a rowboat. I'm sure you've heard it. Two men in a rowboat in the middle of the ocean, no oars, and one of them takes out a hand drill and starts to drill in the bottom of the boat, and the other one starts freaking out, of course, and going, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And the one with the drill says, "What's it to you? I'm only drilling under my seat." The wisdom of the Talmud. There is no such thing as my seat. We literally are all in the same boat together. Here we are watching the climate challenges we have, greater, stronger storms and hotter summers and all that, like as if, well, I'm going to move to Claremont because it's to whatever in the Palisades, that'll take care of the problem, or I'm going to move to, there's no place to move. We're all in this boat together. That's the wisdom of love your neighbor as yourself as well, translated big. So Jewish idea number 3 is the quality of your life is a reflection of the quality of your choices. I find this in the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, I only pick famous Torah passages, another famous Torah passage that you've heard over and over and over again, which is God being quoted as saying, "I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I've put before you life and death, blessing and curse, therefore choose life." You all know it. Therefore, choose life. It's like a throwaway line. Therefore, choose life. Think about it. What that means, what that taught thousands of years ago, when human beings were thought of as nothing, building pyramids, doing whatever, nothing, is that God says, choose. What does that mean? It means that power in Jewish theology, that power that created the whole universe, thinks I have the power to make choices in my own life. We who celebrate the fact we come out of slavery know that being a slave means exactly the opposite of that. No choice. I do whatever my master says, whatever anybody bigger and tougher, the bully says, whatever somebody else says. In my case, it's whatever my wife says, but that's okay. And thousands of years ago, the Torah came along and Torah wisdom said, not so fast. You get to choose who you are by what you do. And those choices mean something. I set before you blessing and curse, life and death, therefore choose. Every choice we make has consequences. That's what we try to teach our kids. Your choices matter. They're not nothing, they're something. The words that come out of your mouth matter. They're not nothing, they're something. We look at all the violence in the world today and all the hatred in the world today and all the differences in the world today, and we know how powerful words can be. We know how powerful choices can be, disrupt an entire society. Some of us feel our democracy itself is in jeopardy at the moment because of words that lead to actions, that lead to choices that are destructive. And our tradition had the wisdom more than 3,000 years ago to say, this matters. Your choices make a difference in who you are. When one of my brilliant books called Children of Character came out, I used to do parenting workshops. And I would ask parents in those parenting workshops, where'd you get your values? And they would always say, from my parents. And then I would always ask, well, how did your parents give you those values? And they would always say, by example, by what they did. And then after they got through the obvious, then they would also say, well, and my parents had these sayings that they would say to me that I remembered. And in fact, part of our goal as parents is that when our children grow up, they hear us in their heads, like their mother is always talking in their head, no matter how old they get, that kind of thing, telling them what to do. So I used to ask people, well, tell me, what was it that your parents or your grandparents, somebody said that you would remember? Yeah, I was somewhere at a big workshop, hundreds of people, and someone raised their hand, this woman, and she said, my mother taught me, never run after a man or a bus, there'll always be another one coming. Boy, I had no intention of sharing that. Anyway, but because Karen's here, I'm going to quote her grandfather, who happens to be my grandfather also. Grandpa Manny very famously used to say, don't wish for fish, fish for fish. That's what this Jewish idea number is about, making choices. Don't wish for fish, fish for fish. How do you catch fish? You don't wish, you fish. How do you make a difference in the world? You act, you choose, and the choices you say and the choices you make matter. So, what you choose every day of your life is your life. What you choose every day of your life is your life. So Jewish idea number 4. Are we having fun? Okay, just checking. Jewish idea number 4. It's the transformational theological idea that Judaism, as we all know, introduced to the world that we call monotheism. This notion that we just did a moment ago with Shema Yisrael Adonai. We didn't do that melody, but we did Shema. And one of the things that Jews always tell me is, oh, it was so cool. I was traveling and I was in Rome and I got into a synagogue, which isn't so easy in Europe, but I got into a synagogue. I didn't speak the language, but then I heard Shema Yisrael and I went, I'm home. This powerful idea from the Torah, I keep toning from the Torah, that there is this one fundamental power in the universe that unites us all. In a world of idolatry, in a world of everybody's got Greek pantheons and Roman pantheons and everybody's pantheons of gods and all kind, we have this notion of Adonai Echad, of one God that transformed the world. I'm sure you've all heard the famous midrash about Abraham and his father that we teach in religious school to third graders or fourth graders or whatever, about, Abraham's father Terach was an idol maker. That's a hard sentence to say. He didn't work idly, he worked building idols. And one day he puts Abraham in charge of the store, and Abraham's playing with the idols and drops one and breaks it. And then, as you know, the midrash says, so Abraham smashed all the idols except for the biggest one and stuck a stick in it. And he's sitting there, Dad comes home, his whole business is trashed, and he's screaming at Abraham, what did you do? It wasn't me. The minute you left, they started arguing with each other, and then they started fighting with each other. And of course, the biggest one ended up winning, and all the other ones, he knocked all the other. Abraham's father goes, should have been, never mind, slapped him in the, what are you talking about? I just made these idols. They can't do anything. And in the midrash, the aha moment, and Abraham goes, so what are you worshiping them for? What are people worshiping them for if they don't do anything? This notion of this God, not only that, what Judaism introduced to the world is the idea of an invisible God. We have God saying to Moses, can't see me. Moses saying, show me your essence, show me who you are. And God saying, what? I will cause all that I do to pass before you. That's how you're going to see me. You're going to know me by looking at the world. You're going to know me by the everyday miracles of life. That's how, I don't believe in God. I experience God in the holiness of the everyday miracles of life. I wake up every morning, I think, thank you, God. Not because I think personally, my own theology, there's a divine being who says, okay, Steve, you get to live, someone else doesn't. But because life itself is a divine gift. Because we have the tradition that every day says, when you wake up, you have a whole list of things to say thank you for. Thank you for my body that works. There's nothing more miraculous. Some of us who have been through surgeries of various kinds know the fact that I can do this is amazing. I don't even think about it until I stick my finger with a pin or something, and suddenly my whole life becomes about my finger. Otherwise, we take everything for granted, all the things that we can do. And our tradition says, don't take anything for granted. Every day, be conscious. Every day, be conscious of your blessings as a fundamental aspect of the holiness of the one God of the universe. Not that there's a being somewhere, but, I had the privilege of being invited by the Jewish Publication Society to write this Torah commentary book based on the writings of Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, who founded Reconstructionist Judaism, because the synagogue where I've been working for the past 36 years is a Reconstructionist synagogue. And I love Kaplan. Kaplan's quoted in your prayer book as well, as a matter of fact. I saw one of them when I was looking today. But of all the 100+ quotations of Kaplan that I ended up using in the book, my favorite Kaplan quote is, He said, the greatest challenge of the modern Jew is to learn how to take the Torah seriously without having to take it literally. The greatest challenge of the modern Jew is to learn how to take the Torah seriously without having to take it literally. I believe that's the greatest challenge of every non-fundamentalist religious person, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or anything else. How do you take these sacred texts that have been passed down for thousands of years and find the current powerful meaning in them without getting hung up in the literalness of it, without reading that God walked in the garden and challenged this person and spoke to this person and did that person, but to find the fundamental holiness of the universe itself and to say that's what we mean by one God. So, Jewish idea number 5, I can talk forever, but I realize how late it's going. Jewish idea number 5 is what you're doing right now. On my top 5, it's called Zachor et Yom HaShabbat L'Kadsho. Shabbat. Okay, really think about this one. More than 3,000 years ago, our ancestors said, God that created the heavens and the earth commands you, don't work 1/7 of your life. In an era where, what do you mean, don't work? Everybody scrounged for a living every single day. And for all of those millions in the world who are the slaves of someone else, you don't get to vote on that. And our God came along, our Torah, whoever wrote that, who said, not only you rest, but everybody in your household, even if you have slaves, they rest. And not only you and everybody in your household, but even your animals rest 1 day a week. That's a transformational, incredible notion. So my 5, Tselem Elohim, created in the image of God, love your neighbor as yourself, the power of choice to give direction to your choice, the idea of monotheism and Shabbat changed the world. The world we live in now is because of those ideas that our ancestors wrote and that our ancestors taught. So, in conclusion, just checking. In conclusion, two quick stories. The first one is about Dee Dee, my wife's aunt and uncle, because I have to tell this story because she made me. She has an aunt and uncle, Uncle Lenny and Aunt Shirley, who live in Israel. They followed their sons there. And they'd never been to California. They came to visit us, so we wanted to show them sort of authentic California cuisine. So we took them to a Mexican fast food restaurant. And they're standing there in line, Mexican fast food, literally, this is a true story, Mexican fast food restaurant. Uncle Lenny's looking up at the board, at the menu, and he turns to Shirley and he says, Shirley, look, you can get nachas here for $1.25. Okay, my last story, also quick. May not be profound, but it's entertaining. Okay, so my last story is also, you probably heard, because it's a famous story of the rabbi who was walking around in her religious school. She walks into a classroom and she sees kids are all drawing something. And she walks up to a little girl and she says, what are you doing? And the girl says, I'm drawing a picture of God. And the rabbi says, but nobody knows what God looks like? And of course, the little girl looks up and says, wait till I finish my picture. That's all of us. All of us are challenged to finish the picture. The picture of holiness, the picture of divinity, the picture of what matters most, the picture of what your own 5 top Jewish ideas that change the world are. And again, I thank you for having me this evening, and Shabbat Shalom.
I want to see if anybody has either questions or
Something to throw at the room.
conversation, something to throw at him.
Yeah,
but
right.
An idea rather than a tomato.
Exactly.
And if anybody has any pieces, or maybe you have something on your list of 5 that you'd like to
Right.
share
Sure.
that wasn't on Rabbi Rubin's list. Yes. Diane.
So I'm wondering, what would the top 1 or 2 in Christianity or Islam be that would be significantly different?
Well, the top one in Christianity would certainly have something to do with Jesus. I don't think there literally would be. One of the things that, and Rabbi Kupitz can, I'm sure, acknowledge this because of his interfaith work, when we work with the clergy that we work with, whether they're Muslim or whether they're Christian, we see our hearts and our thoughts together because we come from the same sense of what matters in the world and what religion is supposed to do and what religion is supposed to mean to those who are the adherents of our particular version of holiness and religion in the world. Because I think the best and the noblest and the brightest of all of our traditions literally are the same. And they grow out of the same sentiment of what matters in life is seeing the holiness of each other and acknowledging that.
I'd like to hear your comments about the current anti-Semitism that's been going on, I know in Southern California and also in the world.
Yeah. It's a topic for an entire other evening, but this is what the French say. Only my French is terrible, even though I took 3 years of it. But it's the more things change, the more they stay the same. That's why I started with there are 7 billion people and there's 10 of us in the whole world, and yet everybody talks about us, good and evil. We are scapegoated. We have been scapegoated. We continue to be scapegoated. It's scary. When I was growing up, Karen and Stephen and I and Didi were talking about this earlier. None of us grew up with security, someone standing up at the beginning of your service and telling you, if we have to evacuate, here's where we're going to meet. Every synagogue in Los Angeles has a security guard, mostly armed now. We didn't grow up that way. The world has gotten to be a scarier place. I must say, you know, when God says, I put before you blessing and curse that I mentioned before, and I was focusing on the choose part, let me focus on the blessing and curse part for a moment. What God doesn't say in that is blessing or curse. God says, here's what life's about, good and evil, life and death, blessing and curse. You get it all. You have life, you get blessing and curse. And then your challenge is to figure out how to make blessings out of the curses, because life is going to have curses in it. And sometimes those curses are in your face, and sometimes they're hidden. And anti-Semitism never went away. It was just mostly underground for a long time in America, mostly. Although my parents' generation grew up with all of the, you can't join this country club, and you can't join that club, and there's a quota for this college, and there's a quota for that college. We're getting it back again, I understand, quotas for Jews in colleges. We can't do this and you can't do that. That's how they grew up. I didn't grow up that way. I grew up in the golden age of, no, we don't do that anymore. And here we are, you know, and the pendulum swings, and the pendulum has swung. And so it's our challenge to stand up with pride and to acknowledge that, as Deborah Lipstadt said, I read this beautiful thing, Deborah Lipstadt, who is, you know, now the anti-Semitism queen of the world, said, if someone had done what Kanye West did in pre-Nazi Germany, it wouldn't have had the reaction that we have in America, with everybody standing up, with all of these companies immediately dumping him, with from the president of the country on down, people getting in line to condemn that, because that's also the nature of our society, and we have to remember that. We live in a world that is not the same world, even though there are some who would like it to be pre-Nazi Germany. That's not our world. We live in a world that doesn't codify anti-Semitism, but does exactly the opposite, and we have to stand up and fight against it and be proud of who we are.
I'm in, I'm a veteran, and I'm in a group of veterans, an online group of post-traumatic stress survivors, or women who experience that. And in my group, I'm the only Jew, of course. I was the only Jew everywhere I went in the Navy. And I tell the ladies, see that I have a holiday coming up. And they said, isn't your holiday tomorrow? I said, no, it starts tonight. And they can't understand that. I think that's a great idea, that, for example, Sabbath starts at sunset. And so you have a peaceful, calm sleep, and then you wake up again and you welcome Sabbath.
And it's still
again.
there. It's so nice.
It's still there, and it's
Yeah.
so wonderful. And I explain it that way to them.
Thank you. You know that those all Jewish holidays start in the evening because of the story of creation, that when it says, God created day 1, day 2, day 3, and it was evening, and it was morning the first day, and it was evening, and it was morning. So the rabbi said, oh, so the day starts in the evening, because it says, and it was evening, and it was morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Rubin. Thank you so much. Let me just put this down. And if you have other questions, you'll ask while we're noshing afterwards. We're going to turn to page 253 as we turn our thoughts to all of those in our community and in our lives who are in need of healing, of body, of mind, and of spirit. If you're at home, feel free to mention those who you're thinking about in the online chat. Those of us in the congregation, I'll share those that are on our healing list, and then we'll also have the opportunity to add names in the congregation as well. 253, middle of the page. Mi sheberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. We ask for blessings upon Rebecca Gilman, Hannah Fields Austin, Sue Toback, Rosin Lefkowitz, Helen Weinfeld, Pam Poliakoff, Connie Shapiro, Kathy Blumenfeld, Caitlin Antrim, Jennifer Rudin, Brad Holland, Serena Postal, Bobby Kay, Robert Strober, Marilyn Lubarsky, Ellery Einstein, Patricia Kramer, Joan Morse, Nomi Kravitz, Craig Sachs, Simon Saul, Blair Pollock, Myra White, Lori Snyder, Charity Razaday, Mike Klein, Lily Morrison, Barbara Fass, Joel Beasy, Burton Gershman, David Bush, Howard Bush, Lawson Spicer, Mark Fenton, Gloria Foster, Rita Warshaw, Ira Quatcher, Robert Gerard, Stephen Arzt, Adele Harris, Brenda Found-Gerard, Ron Freelander, Harvey Sherman, Zach Gross, Jan Marcus, Fred Fable, Steve Sage, Olivia Gross, Don Martins, Marla Fragoso, Candy Stevens, Eva Laxon, Mark Fenton, Martin Cole, Noah Teague, Al Shapiro, Paul Pelosi, and Cantor Paul Bush. If you have somebody you'd like to add, please do so as I come by your row. sheberach imotenu mikor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. I'd like to invite Gary Gilbert to share some announcements on behalf of the Board of Trustees.
Shabbat Shalom again. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to thank all of you for being here in the sanctuary this evening, and for those of you joining us online as well. Toda Rabbah to Rabbi Kupitz, who performed double duty tonight as both rabbi and cantor in leading us in our tefillah for this evening. And we certainly wish Cantor Bush a refuah shlema, a speedy and full recovery. Thank you also to Dr. Randy Polivoy for his lovely piano music, and much appreciation to Claudia Gonzalez, who handles our technology so well. Thanks, of course, I think, go to Rabbi Rubin for your wonderfully informative, compelling, and dare I say it, entertaining presentation this evening. I think your words this evening speak very well to the memory of Brenda Rosenfeld. I think she would have agreed entirely with your 5 choices, although I'll add a 6, Deuteronomy 16:20. Tzedek Tirdof. I think would be another one. I think would be another passage that Brenda would have very much appreciated. Thank you also to those who provided and organized our oneg for this evening, the members of the Rosenfeld Scholars Committee, and the members of the Adult Jewish Learning Committee, led so ably by Joan Gerard, along with Judy Rose, Phyllis Blackie, and Lisa Smolin. Thank you to our various greeters this evening, our outside greeters, Kylie Sykes and Laura Zuckerman, our lobby greeters, Sharon Regalado, Judy Rose, and Sarah Truitt, and our driveway greeter, Jerry Fenning. After service this evening, we gather in the social hall for Kiddush, Motzi, and refreshments and conversation. We have a very busy calendar, and I encourage you to take a look at the TBI website, along with the Kehillah and our weekly updates for all of the activities that are taking place in our temple community. I will mention 3 here this evening. First, next Saturday evening on November 5th, we have a wonderful opportunity to hear the best of Jewish bluegrass in the wonderful musical group Nefesh Mountain. Tickets are available. Please visit the website or call the temple office for more information. The Adult Jewish Learning continues its busy schedule, not only in tonight's event, but also in many other classes. On Tuesdays, Rabbi Kupitz will continue his class on Jewish practice, Foundations for a Thoughtful Judaism. And on Wednesday nights, you can join myself and my colleague, Professor Tammy Schneider, in our class Bible in Text and Art, in which Tammy will explore the richness of the biblical text, and I will present the ways in which Jews have depicted those stories in artistic forms. And we look forward to seeing you there. Shabbat Shalom.
The other thing that I would say, although we've pushed it off 1 week, hopefully it will happen this Wednesday. This Wednesday is Intro to Judaism is also going on. So if you know people who would be interested in Intro to Judaism, Cantor Bush teaches that class. And last Tuesday we decided it'd be better if he wasn't teaching it. So we emailed the people who were taking it and said, we're going to take a hiatus this week. So, but if you're interested or you know people who are interested, that's a long class. So if people come in now, that's perfectly fine. And my class too is a 10-session class, and lots of people have said, oh, I'll be gone 4 of those weeks. Can I still take the class? And I said, yes. I said, while there will be connections each week, to each week before, each week will also stand on its own. So I'd love to have people, whenever you can join me on Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. My class is, Gary didn't say, my class is Zoom only, and Gary and Tammy's class is both in person and on Zoom. It's a hybrid class, so you can make those choices. I'd also like to mention, Dr. Randy Polvoy brought this to our attention, that the Israeli Philharmonic is at Segerstrom Concert Hall in Orange County this Thursday evening at 8 p.m. According to Randy, there are still tickets available. They haven't been in Orange County for 14 years, and they will be here with Lahav Shani, the musical director. It should be a fantastic experience and concert. If you're able to do that, you can certainly go online to the Segerstrom Theater Concert Hall and get your tickets if you're able to go. Or you can call Randy, because he works for the Philharmonic Society. So you can reach out to Randy or talk to him at the Oneg in a few minutes. And
the last time they were here, actually, it was the time before it was when Susan Maida was still there.
uh-huh.
This is the new director that succeeded him.
So again, a wonderful opportunity for something that's relatively close by for us within.
A lot closer than Tel Aviv.
That's a lot closer than Tel Aviv. So absolutely. So I hope you'll join us. We're going to turn now to toward the conclusion of our service. We're going to turn to page 282 in the middle of the page for Aleinu L'Shabeach. I'm going to ask those who are comfortably able to do so to please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula leotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, vanachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד. You may be seated. Page 294. We take a moment to remember those who have been important in our lives, those who have died in recent days or at this time in years past. Again, I invite those of you who are at home to share names of those you're thinking about in the online chat. On this Shabbat, we remember the Yortzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Alan Crown, Julius Feingold, Yolanda Mendoza, Hyman Rosen, Gussie Bernstein, Norman Handelsman, Rabbi Avi Levine, Gisela Green, Berta Liebschard, Sylvia Salzman, Carol Edelman, Al Eli, Dan Friedman, Anne Van Grove, Harold Brent, Benjamin Henring, Barbara Keppelman, Sarah Lee M. Okada, Rose Gitterman, Lynn Jacobs, Sally Schuster, Rose Belofsky Burgle, Edith Burgle Gotchi, Evelyn Feinberg, and Eugene Pontak. If you're remembering somebody on this Shabbat, would like to add their name to those that I've mentioned or restate a name I've already mentioned, please feel free to do so as I come by your row. If you're in a time of mourning or observing a yortzeit on the Shabbat, I invite you to please rise. I invite the rest of the congregation, if it's your custom, to rise in embrace and support of those who mourn. Kaddish 294. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei du kudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiram bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be a blessing. And we'll conclude with Biyado. All together today we'll sing Hebrew, English, Hebrew, Randy, and then we'll conclude it there. Biyado afkid ruchi, Beit Ishan ve'ayira, Geviati Adonai li velo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Draw me near, I shall not. Hold me in your hand, hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Biyado afkid ruchi, Biyado afkid ruchi, Beit Ishan ve'ayira, ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li velo ira. For those of you online, thank you so much for being with us. Those of you in the sanctuary, please join us in the social hall for Kiddush Motzi refreshments. Shabbat Shalom.